A weasel word is a word or phrase aimed at creating an impression that something specific and meaningful has been said when in fact only a vague, ambiguous, or irrelevant claim has been communicated. I think that is what has caused Tom's Hardware to run this headline, which I found because this is all in response to my video yesterday blasting AMD for moving RDNA 1 and RDNA 2 GPUs into maintenance mode for driver updates, saying that you get security and bug fixes, but would no longer be a priority for game optimization or new features. Now, in my comments on that video, I today started getting people saying that AMD has walked this back and is promising day zero game support and driver updates. And when searching for where are they getting this information from, I found this Tom's Hardware article, but here's the problem. This is what the headline says, but I do not think this is what AMD actually told Tom's Hardware. Let's read the direct quote. This is the direct quote from an AMD spokesperson to Tom's Hardware. By the way, all my sources will be linked in the video description as usual. New features, bug fixes, and game optimizations will continue to be delivered as required by market needs in the maintenance mode branch. Notice the words, as required by market needs, and notice the lack of the words, day zero. In other words, they are saying that game optimizations, bug fixes, and new features will be in the maintenance mode branch. When? I don't know. For all games? I don't know. When will AMD decide that this needs to be done? I guess when required by market needs, which is a horrible weasel word way of saying this, because what the heck does that mean? I certainly do not see anything about day zero, any of this happening. And second of all, this is just market needs. What this response sounds like to me is AMD trying to give the impression of backpedaling to get out of some of this backlash that they're feeling over this driver choice that they've been feeling from all over the internet. I mean, I posted my video, Hardware Unboxed a few hours later, posted a video blasting them over this. If you're out of the loop, watch my video yesterday. Like I said, Hardware Unboxed has a video yesterday talking about moving RDNA 1 and 2, that's Radeon 5000 and 6000 series GPUs into a maintenance mode driver branch, which, like I said, has no promise of day zero game support and driver updates. None at all. There were some other issues with it that I didn't talk as much about in yesterday's video as well. But one of my and we'll talk about all of that today. Some other things have been walked back, like a power delivery issue. And we've got some other headlines to talk about today as well. But one of my biggest problems with AMD doing this, even if they're just giving the impression of poor driver support, is that makes the customers feel bad. You should see all of the comments on my video yesterday saying that they feel absolutely betrayed by AMD. They bought an AMD GPU within the last few years that is RDNA 2 and are no longer feeling supported and do not plan on buying an AMD GPU in the future. There's people who bought a 9000 series AMD GPU or 7000 series GPU and are now feeling like they're about to be next, have no confidence on this being supported long term. And that makes a big problem because am I supposed to, when I'm recommending used GPUs, recommend these? And honestly, speaking of used GPUs, that is really where the best deals are to be found. Now, check out Jawa.gg. This is where you buy, sell, and upgrade between gamers, and a huge thanks to Jawa for sponsoring today's video. Honestly, also check them out around Black Friday. From November 22nd through December 2nd, there's going to be a new crazy deal every single day. This will go on big discounts. We're talking like $300 off select PCs, all the way to like RTX 4080s for just $550. You'll need to check in each day around Black Friday to see what's featured. But again, Jawa, you can buy exactly what you're looking for specific PCs, specific performance in specific games. You can sell your old hardware to get extra cash. You can sell directly to Jawa for an instant offer, instant instant convenience, max convenience. But you can also create your own listings. It can even become a side business. There's tons of great reviews. And again, if I'm planning on selling or recommending people to buy a used GPU, the Nvidia 3000 series is certainly sounding a lot more appealing right now than AMD's 6000 series. RTX 3060 here at Jawa for under $200. This is the 12 gigabyte version. This got upgraded to DLSS 4 support. AMD's 6000 series not currently with FSR 4 support. And with statements like these, are they ever going to get it? So again, check out Jawa in a link in the video description and/or pinned comment. Huge thanks to them for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to this topic at hand, because again, the real issue with this is that it's just way too soon to cut support for these. These GPUs, again, I talked about this in my video yesterday, have been on sale extremely recently. A lot of people just bought them within the last 2 or 3 years. Yes, they went RDNA 2 went on sale 5 years ago, which still isn't that long. And the big thing is their competitor Nvidia is only just now sunsetting the day zero game ready drivers for their GTX 10 series, which is nearly 10 years old at this point. And let's be clear, AMD is the underdog in market share, and you don't gain market share by offering worse support than your competitor, which has a near monopoly already. That is not how you gain market share. It's not how you get your loyal customers who already bought your product to come back, and it is not how you convince people who bought your competitor to return. And again, look through my comment section yesterday. There's a lot of very unhappy AMD customers. So AMD, what you need to do is actually make a statement that says what this Tom's Hardware headline makes it sound like you said. Actually promise day zero game support and driver updates for RDNA 1 and RDNA 2 honestly, they need to be going on that 10-year type support level like NVIDIA's offering. And again, criticize NVIDIA for certain features not making it to some of their older generations, but DLSS 4 upscaling, I know not the frame generation, that's going back to the 20 series cards. 20 series came out around RDNA 1 timeframe, and they're still getting their game-ready drivers, right? This is not a good look for AMD. Also, those driver notes had another big issue. I didn't talk about this in my video yesterday, but also there's been developments on this issue. So first, what was the other big issue? And also, the development is apparently it was just completely false, even though AMD specifically said it in their driver updates. This is really crazy, and I do not know what this means about what the heck is going on with AMD's driver team. So this article sums it up pretty well here at Tech Power Up. So in those driver notes, AMD had also specifically stated that their 7900 XTX and 7900 XT made by AMD cards, which had a USB-C connector, which didn't offer data support, but offered DisplayPort and power delivery, would just no longer offer power delivery with the newest drivers. And that you would have to go back to older drivers to continue having power delivery support, which is absolutely insane. Somebody who bought one of those graphics cards with that physical feature and promised feature for the card and may rely on that. Some monitors connect through USB-C and receive power through it. This could have been a reason why you bought this specific model of card, to just suddenly be locked out of any future driver update if you wanted to continue to have that power delivery. That would be an absolute slap in the face. And it's just unbelievable that you would software lock a feature like that years into a card's lifespan. Crazy. But here's what is almost even crazier. None of that was actually the case, even though AMD specifically stated it in the driver update notes. That's crazy. But literally that's the case. And Tech Power Up has tested that this is not just AMD changing their mind and backpedaling and adding it back, that support back into the driver. According to Tech Power Up, they've actually tested it on the driver that had the patch notes saying that this power delivery would no longer work, and yet they tested it and it did work. It also worked without any driver at all. And AMD then specifically also informed them, quote from AMD, "We'd like to inform you that the release notes for AMD Software Adrenaline Edition 25.10.2 posted today included misinformation that has since been corrected. There is no change to USB-C functionality on the RX 7900 series GPUs in the 25.10.2 driver. There was an incorrect line in the originally posted release notes that has been removed, and the release notes have been updated. We apologize for any inconvenience." Now, I just literally do not know what to make of this, because, like, if they didn't remove that power delivery feature, how could something as random and strange as that just magically appear in their driver notes? And yet, as Tech PowerUps claims to have tested, and I have no reason to not believe them, and they're showing shots of the power delivery here, the driver never removed that feature. It just stated it did in the notes. That's absolutely, like, how does that get into the driver notes? Like, that is just crazy. I mean, the only thing that makes sense to me is that they did, for some reason, plan on removing that feature, maybe realize what a terrible decision that would be, then somehow find a way to not remove that feature, and then somehow had already made up notes that included the feature's removal. It's insane to me that they would ever consider removing the feature, but to me, that's the only possible explanation of how that would get into the driver notes. Unless, are they just having AI hallucinate driver notes and somehow that got in there? Like, it just, why would AI even hallucinate that particular thing? It just makes absolutely no sense. Like, why am I wearing a Santa Claus costume on Halloween? I just realized I'm still wearing this. I'm filming this after teaching today. I'm generally a Santa Claus for Halloween. I mostly do this just to irritate my students. They like to debate me on whether this makes any sort of sense. And I just enjoy the debate because I can just argue it's a costume. Like lots of people wear costumes. If they try to argue Santa Claus isn't scary, we go through a detailed line by line about what exactly it is that Santa Claus does. Because you can't tell me none of that sounds a little bit scary. Anyway, long story short, yes, I'm Santa Claus for Halloween, and I mostly do it just to annoy my students. Anyway, I literally just realized I'm wearing this when I looked over at my camera feed. Anyway, whatever. All right, we're just moving on. So yeah, I do not understand why this happened. It's like a completely different issue than this RDNA 1 and RDNA 2 thing, which again is also a huge issue. AMD, please fix. But anyway, also, we do have some other news to talk about. AMD's main competitor, Nvidia, now has become the first $5 trillion public company in history. Now, obviously, this is mostly driven by AI rather than the gaming segment, but that is absolutely insane. $5 trillion. And you can maybe see why, I don't know, is AMD making blunders like this because there's just not a lot of resources going towards the Radeon gaming side of things now? They want the focus on the machine learning future. That's really the only thing that makes sense to me. I'm not saying it makes like they should do this, like please focus on your customers and try to give them a good experience and long-term support. But like, I guess maybe their head's just on AI. Company resources are devoted to AI data center. So maybe their driver team is just small and they want to focus on the newer cards, especially if they're focusing on new machine learning based features like FSR Redstone, etc., which maybe won't be supported in RDNA 1 and 2, since starting with RDNA 3, there was at least like WMMA, matrix acceleration, which is useful for the, inferencing the machine learning stuff. So like, I mean, you can kind of read between the lines on what's going on here. It's just that doesn't make it acceptable. Just devote the resources for your customers here. Give them support. You have to at least match the support of your main competitor or beat it if you're trying to gain market share against a competitor who's a $5 trillion company with a near monopoly. Anyway, Nvidia's been having their own driver issues with their 5000 series, by the way. So if AMD was ever going to start to reverse the trend on who was considered to have the better drivers and driver support, this was the time. But this is not how you do it. And like I said, I don't even know how this happens. Okay, that just makes no sense. Now, AMD has also been reshuffling the naming scheme of a lot of their stuff, which I should just point out so you're aware. So their mobile lineup, and I think some of this might even be desktop, we're seeing some Ryzen 10 series now, which, to be clear, is Zen 2 based, so very old actual architectures in there, and Ryzen 100 Zen 3 Plus based series. Kind of rebrand here. So just be aware of that naming scheme. Videocards.com has some really helpful tables here to understand what is actually in that. And they are listing desktop as having some Ryzen 100 parts here and Ryzen 10 parts. So that's interesting. Also, by the way, note the graphics in here. Isn't Radeon 640, 660, 680, 610Ms, aren't those all RDNA 2? Which is moving into maintenance mode, and yet this is new product lines selling these with these graphics built in. Yeah, again, not acceptable, AMD. Just does not make sense. Back to this, by the way. Okay, just going to rant a little bit more about this. Some comments I'd like to respond to on my previous video on this topic. So some commenters were questioning whether this even really matters. Does getting day zero game support and driver updates actually do anything? And I want to mention that I think that in some games it actually does very little, and I don't have enough hard data gathered to make a meaningful claim like statistically on in how many games and from which GPU vendors, AMD, Nvidia, Intel, etc., does this actually matter or make a meaningful performance difference? But I can say that you can literally go through like the history of these driver notes and note that there's driver updates that specifically call out fixes for issues happening, graphical corruption, game crashing, etc., in specific games. So yes, driver level updates and optimizations absolutely do fix graphical issues, game crashing issues, game performance issues. Absolutely. That is absolutely a thing. And I think the day zero drivers absolutely do that. I mean, honestly, the thing that jumps out at me right now is thinking about some Intel driver, because like AMD, Nvidia, and Intel all do this. They do their game ready drivers. I think that's the Nvidia branding version, but they're day zero drivers for optimized for specific games. And like, there's some games that like when they launch, won't even launch on an Intel Arc card until they release their driver for the game, and then it'll actually launch and it fix some issues. Like I've encountered that. I've also encountered, like I said, specific issues in games on day one, and then the driver release comes out and they are fixed. So yes, this is absolutely a thing. Yes, it absolutely does matter. And yes, people have been buying RDNA 2 graphics cards on a pretty regular basis within the last 2 or 3 years, even the last 1 year. And they launched a new product like the 6750 GRE in China 2 years ago, RDNA 2. We've got stuff like this coming out literally right now that's RDNA 2. Anyway, I've got to stop. Let's talk about something else. Okay, more hardware news. How is Intel doing? So there's been a bunch of rumors going on today and leaks and things, behind the scenes info about Intel Arc GPUs. The latest is that maybe the Arc B770, so a more powerful Battlemage GPU, could still potentially happen. There'd been a lot of rumors about this, but it had been kind of leaning towards maybe not. So the latest info is that Intel's BMG G31 GPU has appeared in an engineering driver. I found this at videocards.com. They got the information from GOK for free, or GOK. I don't know if it's GOK or GOK. I'm going to go with GOK. So GOK here says BMG G31 really exists. Seems that it has 3 Pro version and 1 consumer version, B770 question mark. This engineering driver's info also includes NVL and NVL-S. So notice that's there. So could be a thing. We don't know. But along with this, there's been a bunch of other kind of what seems like behind the scenes information coming out about Intel having originally planned for a big Battlemage GPU, potentially a Halo level SoC with lots more Xe cores and 3D stacked cache. Super interesting, but looks like with Intel's financial woes, all the layoffs, etc., that this must have got scrapped behind the scenes. Maybe we'll still get a B770, but that doesn't seem to be the giant kind of thing that we'd seen, that we're seeing some evidence for back here. That same Gawk for Free account, a while back, this looks like actually back in May, had shown this picture, which seems to be a PCB for what would have been a much larger GPU die than anything we saw in the B580 or B570. And today we're getting some discussion on Twitter between Bionic Squash, Raw Mango, etc., mentioning BMG G10 X3 was a 3D stacked die with 28 Xe cores, 8 megabyte L2 cache, 192-bit GDDR6, a bus, X16 PCIe Gen 5 interface, and 512 megabytes of adamantine cache. That's interesting. But also the comment, Intel killed off every single adamantine cache product. BMG X3, BMG X4, bigger die with 40 Xe cores, ARL Halo. So, in other words, it looks like there may have been a Halo product, 40 Xe cores, some sort of 3D cache, seems to be called adamantine cache. I would have loved to have seen this. This would have been so cool. But seems like not to be the case. Now, maybe they'll get back to that at some point in a future generation. Gamers Nexus, I haven't pulled up the video to show behind me right now, but Gamers Nexus just today, I think it was this morning, released a video testing out Intel's drivers. They have come a long way. So it's really good to see additional, competition in this space. And it's really cool to see how far they've come. To be clear, it's not perfect, but it's come a long way. Now, one of the concerns with a super powerful high-end GPU from Intel, or maybe even potentially something as powerful as like what we'd expect a B770 to be, is that the more powerful it gets, the more likely you are to run into CPU limitations. And we had seen that CPU driver overhead issue on Intel GPUs. Which kind of came to the public attention around the launch of the B580 and B570. Now, Hardware Unboxed a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, somewhere around there, actually retested that. And they had made a huge amount of improvements in a lot of games. And it looks like in that testing, it seems to be that specific games were kind of fixed for that driver overhead issue, but it wasn't in across the board, like there was a particular problem with the driver software overall that was fixed and then it got fixed across the board. It seems more like individual games were kind of individually fixed. Seems to be more of the case. So that is one of the things that I'd kind of be a little bit hesitant about with a higher end product is, the higher frame rates your GPU can hit, the more likely you are to run into CPU limitations. And Intel is still having some issues with that. But again, that issue's come a long way. Their overall driver stability has come a long way. So it would be really cool to get Intel in here really competing. Because, come on, AMD, we need you to stop shooting yourself in the foot anytime you start to make some headway. And we need more players in here. Because, again, NVIDIA's essentially a monopoly at this point. Market share-wise, $5 trillion company. That's absolutely insane. We need competition here. Unfortunately, there's some bad news, which is that server DRAM prices surge up to 50% as AI-induced memory shortage hits hyperscaler supply. US and Chinese customers only getting 70% order fulfillment. In other words, DRAM right now, the supply and demand is completely out of whack. There's more demand than there is supply. What that means for us building gaming PCs is that DRAM in general becomes more expensive. If you've tried to buy any just system RAM, DDR5 RAM for a gaming PC build right now, it's like doubled in the last month or so. Maybe really just the last couple of weeks. It's pretty crazy. And that also can affect like SSD pricing. It also can start to affect GPU pricing because GPUs have VRAM. This is all, coming from the same suppliers. So it's competing with that. So supply and demand is all out of whack here. And again, what's it all due to? AI, these AI data centers, which are what are driving up Nvidia's market share to $5 trillion. There's just massive amounts of money going into all of this, and they're just trying to build up these huge data centers. This is what we get on this side of things. Is AI doing anything for the gamer? I've really been trying to think about, there's the obvious applications with things like DLSS and FSR4, where you're using, the machine learning upscaling to try to improve traditional gaming performance. What I'm really interested in is whether we start to see AI being used in games. And I don't mean for game development. Obviously there could be, generative AI applied to making textures and whatever. That's not what I'm looking at either. I'm curious when we'll start to see AI become more of an interactive part of gameplay, become a gameplay element. And I've been following that, and I don't know if it's going to work well, but it does intrigue me to have the ability to, have characters in games not always follow scripted dialogue or scripted choices, but instead be more truly interactive in the way that, honestly, large language models are pretty impressive in the types of conversations they can carry out, right? So I am somewhat interested in NVIDIA's ACE tech. Now, I don't know what I think about this, though. So there was an NVIDIA ACE demo showing off how PUBG is going to have an ACE-powered AI teammate. And a public test for this will happen in early 2026. Now, there's kind of a video showing some of this off in a very controlled experience here. And I don't know. I don't think this is the application of it I'm looking for. First of all, in a competitive game mode seems just wrong to me, because having an AI teammate in PUBG, that seems wrong. I don't want a bot teammate. I don't mind the bot being able to talk to you or respond to commands. It's just I don't like the idea of a competitive game mode having AI players necessarily. So that seems a bit weird. So really, to me, this would be more interesting in could you make open worlds feel a little more alive if the, characters and things can respond more to what's actually happening in the game. So I don't know. We'll have to see, because with all of this AI stuff, you always wonder how much of this is going to end up just being something that ends up just being a flop, and how much of it will actually change the way we do things. And in the game context, that's where I'm wondering if, from a gameplay perspective, if AI conversations, then again, I don't really want to be actually physically talking to my PC. So I hope, but obviously they could respond to text as well. I'm just kind of thinking out loud now. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of the news topics today. Are you happy with AMD's sort of walking back what they said, but not really, required by market needs? Is that enough for you? What do you think happened here with this USB-C power delivery thing? What is going on with all of that? And like I said, what do you see being the future of AI as a gameplay element? Is that something you want to see, and what would that look like? I'm just curious how this all ends up playing out. Let me know your thoughts on everything in the comment section. And I need to go get ready for my kids to get home and get costumes on and go get some candy. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.